Why did that just feel like a spider went up my leg? Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far. So for today's video, I thought I would update you on some products that I kind of left you hanging a little. I feel some of these products I'm updating because my opinion or my thoughts have changed in one way or another. And some of these is just because I've only kind of given you my first impressions or my initial thoughts on them. Some of these products, my opinions have kind of changed over time. So I wanted to update you on how I feel about them now. And some of these products, I just feel like I've been using them for longer now and I have a more cohesive opinion formed based on just more experience with the products over time. So that's why I want to update you specifically on these products, or just to kind of give you some extra info. So the first product I want to talk about is Pat McGrath's Mothership 9. And the reason I don't have it here to show you is I actually sold this on my Instagram. If you don't know, on my Instagram, every now and then, if there's a product that I've used only for review purposes and I just don't feel like I need to keep it or that it's going to be any use in my collection, then I sometimes will sell it and I'll just post it on my stories and it will be like a first come first served who can repurchase that very lightly used product. So that's what I did with that palette, and here's my reasons why. So first I want to say that I think that palette performs beautifully. The mattes are gorgeous, like Pat's best mattes in that palette. I think the formula of the mattes and the shimmers, in fact, is stunning, gorgeous, her best formula. Absolutely no issues whatsoever with the performance, other than maybe one, and that's this special shade. But for me, just has more fallout than the other special shades that I've tried before those astral shades. I feel like you kind of expect them to have a little fallout because of the type of formula they are. They're going to have more fallout than the matte and most metallic formulas, so I do expect a little bit of fallout. I felt like that shade, that astral shade, more so than others I've used, had more fallout. But the reason I rehomed it is really just to expand on my thoughts that I gave on that palette in my monthly faves and fails, is that I just will not use it. That's the ultimate truth. I felt like I needed to give it a decent go, and I really considered that decision. I made sure that I used pretty much every shade in the palette once at least, just to actually really think through the palette and actually whether it was something that I wanted to keep or not. But I just came to the conclusion that it just won't get used. Even when it was brand new sitting on my desk, I didn't feel excited to pick it up and use it. I was kind of hankering after wanting to use other palettes instead, and that doesn't happen. Usually when I get a new eyeshadow palette, I just want to use that one and nothing else, and I'm really excited to use it, and that one I just never felt excited to use it. And I think the reason why is just because it just gets lost in my collection. Amongst the like Divine Rose 1 and 2, I much prefer those two as far as the colour story and the different options that I have in both those palettes. And also Subversive, that one is like quickly becoming possibly my actual favourite Pat McGrath palette ever. That one was kind of my newest to my collection before 9 came along, and it's quite quickly moving through the ranks and may even end up like my favorite of all time. And I just feel like between those three, I'm much more excited and reach for those over 9, so therefore it's just never going to get used because I have a fair number of Mothership palettes. So even when I get the opportunity to use those, I'm not filming a review or filming something else or using a Natasha Denona palette or using a Charlotte Tilbury palette, I am going to want to use those palettes before that one. I just felt like it was never going to get used. It was going to be really neglected. I didn't feel I needed it in my collection, and therefore I decided it should leave, because you know me, I don't like to keep loads and loads and keep everything. I like to keep my collection as minimal as possible. With a YouTube channel, it's challenging the majority of the time, all the time, in fact, to do that. So I definitely want to rehome as much makeup that won't get used here as possible, and that's why I rehomed it. But I think the performance is amazing, and I think if you don't have any Motherships or you don't have Divine Rose 1 and 2, then you will feel totally different about it than I do. But for me, it's just kind of lost among those others, and it doesn't stand out for a reason, whereas all of the others stand out for something that I'll want to use them for, an occasion or a specific colour or a look. That one just didn't offer anything different that would mean I reached for it. That's kind of my updated thoughts on it. But an amazing formula. I think it's a beautiful colour story. It's just one that I have and prefer others. I'm super happy that one of you got to repurchase it, and a really great price, and will use it and love it forever. So there is that to console me with. So next up, a product that I have changed my mind on and need to alert you to this fact, because it is a product I've talked about a lot on my channel, used a lot on my channel, and still am using, to be fair, for the time being, but have started to develop some issues with. So I want to make sure that you know about these issues. You may experience them too, and I just feel like this is something you should know that has started to happen to me, and it's the Tatcha Liquid Silk Canvas. Who would have thought this was going to happen? I certainly didn't. So here's the thing about this primer. So I started off with the solid, like the original Tatcha Silk Canvas, and it's the love of my life. I've repurchased it, I think twice. So I've emptied 3, I've gone through 3. They last a year each time, and it's amazing. I love everything about that primer. When this one first came out, I wanted to try it because it's, you know, the same primer that I love, and I feel like in a slightly more convenient formula with the pump and the fact that it's a liquid. I was just curious to try it and see, you know, if it's exactly the same, gives me all the same stuff as the solid pot. I'm probably going to prefer this one because it's easier, more hygienic to use, store, travel with, etc. And at first, that's exactly how I felt about it. I actually started to prefer this one to the solid just because of convenience and hygiene and all of that jazz. And I was just kind of wanting to see how long it lasted for, because the solid does last for so long, and I know I can get like a year's use out of one of those bad boys. And I just wanted to see if this is going to run out in a month or two, then I'll go back to the solid. That's kind of what I was working with, because these are not available here, and people are always asking me, how do you get your silk canvas? It's not available here. The shipping is insane. So how do I get this? And the answer, unfortunately, is that I have beautiful, amazing friends in America who will send me my Tatcha Silk Canvas. They're my Tatcha Silk Canvas suppliers, and they'll send it to me so that I don't have to pay double to get it here with shipping and everything. So that's where I get my silk canvas from, but that's a side note. So what's started to go wrong with this primer is that I changed my moisturizer. So it's not necessarily that this primer is doing anything wrong or doing anything bad, but when I changed my moisturizer, so I'm now using my Peter Thomas Roth, what's it called? Something about drenching, water drench moisturizer. It's a moisturizer with a high SPF in it, which I think is the issue. And I do leave quite a long time between my skincare and my makeup, especially face makeup, because I'll do my skincare. I then usually have breakfast, sometimes do the school run, whatever, and then I'll do my makeup. So there's usually like maybe half an hour. I also do eyes first, so that's more time that my skincare has to soak in. Never had an issue with this before I changed my moisturizer. So I know that's what's happened, but it started pilling horrendously, really, really badly. And it doesn't matter how long I leave my skincare to soak in for. I put this over the top and my hands are just covered in like that pilling all over my face. It's a real issue. And I've been using another primer I'm going to talk about in a minute, because I'm having this problem with this one, and that one is not doing that. I also tried my Laura Mercier, a couple of my Laura Mercier primers, and they aren't doing that on top of that moisturizer. So it's specifically this one. So I know I have heard people say that this pills on them before. So obviously the moisturizer I was using before didn't create that issue, and that's why it obviously is one of these products that doesn't play nicely with everybody, that doesn't play nicely with all moisturizers and all makeup, and maybe will not play nicely with all foundations either. For that reason, I never, in the maybe 3 years that I used the solid silk canvas for, ever did it pill, ever. And I use a different moisturizer almost every single time I run out of one. I use a different one. So I know that I tested that solid over maybe, oh, who knows, probably 10, 15 more different moisturizers. Never had this issue. This one, it's only obviously worked with one moisturizer. And then when I changed it, I was using, by the way, for info, the Dermalogica moisturizer before I switched to Peter Thomas Roth. So if you have this, and it's pilling on you, that would be my suggestion if you just want to get the use out of it and use it up, is to try changing your moisturizer, because it was absolutely fine until I did that, and then it's like pilling like an utter madness. So that's really disappointing, but good to know and good to be able to update you guys that that will happen sometimes if you're using a moisturizer it doesn't play nicely with. Maybe it's going to depend on whether it's got high SPF in it or not. Maybe that's the issue, it doesn't play nicely with SPF. But yeah, good to know either way, and I will be going back to my solid, because obviously now in the long game this one has lost, sadly. So next up, let's talk about this Lancome Teint Idole Ultra Wear All Over Concealer. So I have been giving this a bit more of a try, and I have also been using this in combination with my NARS color corrector. So if you watch my review of this one, I liked it, didn't love it. For me, it just didn't give me enough coverage. I was just kind of still showing darkness peeking through, so that was kind of an issue. Well, not necessarily an issue, but it's the reason why it's not going to kind of beat out my Pat McGrath concealer, because that one covers everything that I want it to and this one doesn't quite, so it's not going to make it into my kind of holy grail drawer, if you see what I mean. But what I will say is that when I'm having a very, very light makeup day, I just want a very sheer base, barely anything there, just a little bit of help, I have been using this more than I expected. I'm just reaching for this because it balances more. You know, if I go in with a very sheer base and then put a full coverage concealer on, it's going to kind of look a bit off and a bit odd. So in that case, I have been using this, and I think it's a lovely formula, and I really enjoy the applicator. I think they nailed the applicator in here, which is a weird thing for me to get excited about. But I love the size and the shape of it, and it's super gentle. It's just the right size to get right into your under eyes, and it's very nice and flat. I just love everything about it. So it's nice to use. And like I said in the initial review, if you don't want a really full coverage concealer, I think this is a lovely medium coverage concealer, and I am actually using it, which I didn't think I would. I thought I'd just discard it because it's not beating out my Pat McGrath, but actually if I'm kind of toning down, if I'm doing a very sheer no makeup day, this has kind of like become my go-to concealer for those days, because there was no other issues really. It's slightly creased but didn't get worse throughout the day, so I can kind of deal with a slight creasing under those circumstances. So yeah, for me this has definitely become a more like, still not a love, but a more liked than initially. Next up, I want to talk about what is on my eyes, and it is the Natasha Denona Retro palette. I used this in a trying new makeup video. I didn't do a standalone review of this because it was just a little bit late and I was kind of on holiday when it arrived. And so I did do my kind of first impressions of it in a trying new makeup video. So I only kind of used a few shades, and since it's pretty much all I've had on my eyes, I've been trying the life out of this palette. I've tried every shade in here, and I have very much got to know it now and know my thoughts on it completely as a palette. I know it like the back of my hand, some would say. This was definitely one that initially could have gone either way. As I got to know the palette better, it could either have become like, do you know what, this is just passable, it's not that great, or I was going to get to know it better and like it more, and that's what's happened. I have fallen in love with this palette. I really, really enjoy it. So I think initially I was a little disappointed with the shimmer on these two shades. It was just not as impactful as I kind of was looking for and wanted. I've since used this glitz shade and got exactly the effect I want, and it is just down to you have to use a finger. That's my recommendation with this one. Use a finger and it will give you everything you want and more. I also find this palette, as I do with a lot, so here's the thing, hold up, hold your horses. In here there are a lot of that cream to powder formula that is very divisive, very controversial. I love it. People either love it or hate it, and I love it. So if you don't like the cream to powder, I think there's something like 5 of them in here, if not more. And that's the thing. Those shades that are cream to powder formula, don't look in the pan anything like how they will look on your eyes. So you really need to get to know the palette, because otherwise it kind of surprises you. And it did actually in that video. I started to use a shade and I was like, oh wait, this is much lighter than I thought it was going to be. And there are shades in here that the undertones really come through when they go onto the eyes. And there's just so many like surprises in here. And so having used it a lot more, I've really found like the combos that I love and what works and what shadows actually look like on the eye. And oh, it's just heavenly. I love it. I think the color story is glorious, and it is kind of more unique to my collection than I thought, because I do have a lot of pink, purple, mauve toned eyeshadows, but the thing about this one is its smokiness, which is quite unique. A lot of these shades have a really smoky tone to them, a real like soft, smoky, sultry tone, and that for me, I think it's very flattering on eyes. And I think the formula in every shade in here is gorgeous, and there are some real surprises. This shade, so I watched Mel Thompson's review and she just used this shade almost like a matte, all in the crease, all over the lid, and then topped it with Psychedelic, which is what I did today, and it's just gorgeous. Very, very easy, quick, just absolutely stunning, and not a combination I would ever have thought of. So again, that's helped watching more reviews and just finding the shades in here and how to use them. I did not think I would use this shade at all, but I found it's amazing as an inner corner highlight. It works beautifully. Again, Vivian didn't really know what to do with this one, but this is actually amazing on the brow arch. It really lifts that area. So you see what I'm saying? I've just really got to know it and love all of the options in here. I find it really quite versatile, given that it is quite sort of one-dimensional as far as the colours in here. I actually find you can get a lot of different looks, and I will use every shade in here with no like kind of making myself use that one or trying to, you know, crowbar that one in somewhere. The whole palette is very, very usable, very, very cohesive, and just beautiful, and I'm absolutely falling in love with it. So next up, another primer that I reviewed, and again, I feel like, you know, I kind of gave my initial thoughts on it and didn't really give you much more, because this sort of product you really do need to use a lot before you can kind of give all of the information. And because I was using this one every single day before it started having those little issues, this one wasn't kind of getting much of a look in, and it is now for that reason. So that's a bonus, you know, every cloud, every cloud. So this is the Charlotte Tilbury, what is this called? Invisible UV Flawless Poreless Primer. So yeah, initially used this, liked it, didn't have any issues, but didn't love it as much as my silk canvases. But this one has had to step up to the plate since I've been having issues with the Tatcha Silk Canvas, the liquid. I've started using this and loving it. This is a very nice, I'm not wearing makeup today, I'm just going to put some primer on, you know, kind of product. So you can really use this and wear it on its own and not just as a primer. It does have SPF 50 in it, so that is a bonus. But I just find this gives you a very smooth, fresh, healthy glow to the skin. It's one of those products that's a bit like a filter, like if you think about the Hollywood Flawless filter, but it's not as like glowy as that. Obviously it doesn't have any coverage, but it is like walking around with like a face mask on. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's very pleasant on the skin, and it does just give you this gorgeous filtered, brightened, smooth and luminous look to the skin, and it is very like fresh, refining, and just smoothing, plumping, all of that good stuff. So you can see there the comparison with this hand, just that gorgeous luminous glow to the skin. I think you can probably see it's kind of evened out the skin tone, and everything looks just smoother, fresher and healthier. So I actually think this is a gorgeous primer, and this is the one that I've been reaching for. Now I'm having these issues. This has kind of become more like my day-to-day primer, just because I know it's not going to give me any issues. And going on top of the same moisturizer I was having issues with the Silk Canvas, this one has been completely fine. Not a single pill as far as the eye can see. It's not bunching up or doing anything at all, and I feel like it really does just keep my makeup looking fresher, and more luminous throughout the day. I've also now used this with multiple different foundations, and again, never an issue with foundations going over the top of it either. So another one that's pretty much grown on me, I would say. So another product that I want to update you on, and these are the blushes from the Dior Birds of a Feather Stick Together collection. That's not what it's called, it's just the Birds of a Feather, but you know, finish it off at least. So these two blushes, I picked both of them up and I had pretty, not low expectations, but moderate expectations. I like blush. These shades looked right up my street. I thought they're going to be fine. Sure, I'm going to enjoy them. Of course, they're a blush. One is a gorgeous coral shade, which is one of my favourite blush shades to use, and one is a beautiful neutral kind of smoky, what will we say, mauvey browny kind of situation. Again, it's kind of my second colour of blush that I enjoy. Sure, I'm going to enjoy them. These have gone straight in my top drawer. If you don't know what that means, where have you been? My top drawer is where my like everyday staples, most used, most favourite makeup is stored, if you will. So here they are. Now, I really didn't think this one was going to like show up, work on me, be like a favourite. Particularly this is the nude shade and it's just like a dream. The finish of it is gorgeous. Again, I thought this was going to be too shimmery, too sparkly, not particularly flattering, and it's just gorgeous. It's so luminous, such a beautiful sheen. I adore it. Now this coral shade, sorry, I just had to build that one up a little bit so you can kind of see the true coral tone in there. For kind of different reasons, I sort of thought this was going to be very matte, and I think it was kind of how it was described as being a matte blush. It's definitely more of a satin and has a bit of a sheen to it, and it's so flattering, and I actually find it quite unique. When you actually put it on the cheeks, I don't really have a shade that's quite like this one. So I mean, that really turned this launch, which I wasn't that excited about and wasn't really expecting a lot from, into one of my favourites of the year. I feel like with just two shades of blush, it's very hard to actually kind of appeal to a lot of people, but I think they kind of managed to nail it, because there's something for like fair to medium skin, something for, I mean, you could absolutely wear this one if you're fairer with just a light hand, but something brighter, more vibrant, that can be used on deeper skin. If you're kind of into brighter tones or peachy tones, you've got something. If you want to stick more neutral, you've got something. If you like a lot of luminosity, you've got something for you. If you like something that's not quite so luminous, you've got something. So I just feel like in two blushes, they nailed it as much as you can with only two, if you know what I mean. And they were just really a surprise for me, and something that I thought would go quite quickly into the next drawer down. Has very much solidified their place in that top drawer for now, but you know, we'll have to see how the rest of the year goes. So next up, the Shiseido Synchro Skin Self-Refreshing Skin Tint. So I did a full review and wear test on this bad boy if you want to see that, but it was I think it was my first time using it in that video. So it was kind of my first use. So again, I just wanted to update you now that I've worn this under different conditions, had different days where I've worn this with different primers and just different situations. So this is definitely becoming like a staple for me. I really liked it and was like pleasantly surprised, I'll say, in my review, because this just isn't really my type of product. I'm like a bare face or like full beat kind of girl. I generally tend to do like nothing, or maybe just a bit of this sort of by Terry CC serum and go, or I do like this whole shebang. So tinted moisturizers, they're not like my favorite product. I feel like there's a time and a place for them, but I don't get a huge amount of use out of them. I much prefer like a more medium coverage foundation. This one is really making it into like my regular use drawer rotation, because it just kind of offers me something that I didn't know I needed, but I really enjoy. So it very much kind of fits into the Trini London BFF cream, the By Terry CC serum, in that it's very, very sheer. It doesn't give me a lot of coverage, but it does really even out redness, discoloration. It gives me a gorgeous glow and like a plump, smooth finish, fresh finish on the skin. And it's just very, very pretty. But this stuff wears amazingly. For that type of product, I just don't know about you, but I don't really expect them to wear very well, and generally they don't, just because they're lighter. So, you know, if you lose any coverage, you're going to see more showing through than if you started off with a fuller coverage. But I've been wearing this for like really hardcore days out with the family, where I'm out all day, where you're in the sun, maybe it's then rained, and I haven't taken it off until like I'm ready to go to bed, and it's alarmingly in place at the end of the day. I really feel like this lives up to its 12-hour wear claim, and that's 12 like solid hours under some intense conditions. I'm making it sound like I went to like SAS training wearing this or something, which maybe I did, maybe I didn't, who could say. But what I'm saying is, I think this is in this category, this wears incredibly well, and I think it's beautiful. As I said in my review, it's really stingy as far as an amount for this type of product. I wish they'd given us at least 40 mils, because I do like a bit of value for money, you know, who doesn't? But other than that, I'm really, really impressed with this. I'm enjoying it. I think lots of people, especially if you have mature skin, dry skin, if you just favour this type of product, it's a good one. And last but not least, a product that you'll be surprised I've been using recently. Really surprised. Unless, again, maybe you follow me on Instagram and you've peeped it and you've clocked what's been going on. I have been getting a lot of use out of my Charlotte Tilbury setting spray. You can see this is the travel size, the smaller size. It's not that small though, 34 ml, nearly empty. Do you see that? This is that, nearly empty, nearly all gone, and I will be repurchasing it. I never thought that I would be repurchasing a setting spray. I don't really set anything. Not really a setting powder kind of girl. Never really been before a setting spray type of person. But this stuff, I've just been using it maybe just, you know, for fun. I don't know. I think I just had a few days where I thought, why not? Why not? It's going to be a really long day. It's going to be a taxing day makeup wise. It's very hot. It's very hot, humid. Maybe we'll see if this is going to make any difference. And I actually really think it does. I think this is a beautiful spray, mist, scent, all of those things. So actually the application process is quite nice, just at the end of makeup, feeling a bit hot, feeling a bit heavy. It definitely gives that settled in, takes the powdery look away, which is like kind of the first job of a setting spray for me. I really enjoy applying it. It's beautiful, never disturbs anything, never leaves like any splotches or messes any makeup up. But I really do notice that this helps my makeup stay in place for longer, and on those really challenging days, I've definitely noticed my makeup just looks fresher at the end of the day. And yeah, it's definitely down to this one. And I'm a convert, so who would have seen that coming? Not me, because I use really as few products as possible, because I'm just usually quite lazy and in a rush. So there you have it. Those are all the products that I wanted to update you on, whether my opinions have changed or I've just got to know them a bit better. I hope this video was helpful, and I'd love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.